beer, it's good for you.
Hello and welcome to the video. Fermentis have very recently released 2 new wheat yeast strains to complement their dry yeast lineup, and in this video I'll be giving key information about these 2 new strains, as well as the existing wheat yeast strains so you can see where they all fit. So let's get started. For quite some years Fermentis have had just one type of wheat yeast, WB06, as shown here. This yeast is somewhat of an all-rounder in that it can be used for a variety of different wheat beer styles. Fermentis have now very recently released 2 new wheat beer yeast strains, W68 and BW20, which are certainly more specific compared to WB06, so let's go into the details for this range of wheat yeast. Let's start by looking at the different types of ales that these yeasts can be used for. As you can see, this includes the classic European styles that involve wheat, but can also include newer wheat-based beer styles from America, for example. When Fermentis tests their yeast, there is a baseline method used. This allows Fermentis to share meaningful sensory analysis of each strain that brewers can select the right yeast for the right recipe for their chosen profile. If we look at where WB06 finds itself within this analysis, you can see that it is quite the opposite of being a neutral yeast, and is right in the middle of being fruity and spicy to a strong level compared to the other types of yeast shown on this scale. However, yeast in general can certainly vary with its end results if the conditions are changed, and Fermentis are very keen to emphasize this to their customers so that they can firstly know what to expect, and secondly plan to achieve the desired results. Fermentis have conducted trials and analysis with WB06, as you can see here. 50-litre batches were prepared to a variety of different conditions. Firstly, 3 different wort densities were used at 12, 16 and 20 degrees Plato. 3 different pitching rates were also used, varying from 25 grams per hectolitre to 100 grams per hectolitre. 4 different fermentation temperature schedules were also tested, ranging from 12 to 24 degrees Celsius, or the equivalent of 53.6 to 75.2 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas the wort composition of 100% Pilsner malt and bitterness did not change from the standard baseline. Here is an overview of the design of these experiments so that you can fully understand how this worked. If you wish to look at this for longer, then please pause the video now, as I intend to move on. The results came into Fermentis and were analysed, and the following conclusions were reached as a starting point. Firstly, you can see that when low or very low temperatures are used, then this will extend the fermentation time. Low pitching rates will also generally increase fermentation time too, as will high gravity worts. However, the apparent degree of fermentation is between 87 to 90%, regardless of how you change these conditions, which is certainly reassuring for those that want to try their hand at performing their own experiments in this way. Also reassuring is how these experiments had an effect on volatile compounds. The variation was with ethyl butanate, which is responsible for those tutti frutti, pineapple and tropical fruit ester flavours, and ethyl octanate, which offers esters that can be described as fruity, floral with banana and pineapple. Before looking at the sensory analysis, it is vital to know that Fermentis have trained their panel so that they have all of the necessary skills and knowledge that lead to good evaluation and effective reporting. The conclusions found for WB06 are that regardless of the change of fermentation conditions, be they in temperature, wort density or pitching rate, that this yeast will always have a clove-like aroma on some level. Low fermentation temperatures have been found to promote fruity aroma, especially those of banana. Worts with a higher density increase the yeast's impact on aroma as well as the perception of bitterness and sweetness. Furthermore, in the event of off flavours, these can also be increased. It has also been noted that overpitching within low-density wort can also increase sulfur production. Let's now look at the first of the new yeast strains, W68, which is the historical yeast for German wheat beers from the northern area of Munich. This yeast should be your go-to when an intense fruity ester profile and moderate phenolic character is desired. That is to say, you can expect some moderate clove-like and smoky notes along with a medicinal edge that certainly would be an off-flavour for most beer styles, but not these. However, as we know, there are levels of control that can be applied to all yeast depending on the desired results, which I will cover shortly. Naturally, Fermentis have done a fair bit of experimentation with W68, and within this test found that even at a fermentation temperature of 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, this strain offers a fast fermentation and a final attenuation close to 80%. Within this next experiment, Fermentis increased the fermentation temperature to 23 degrees Celsius, which is just over 73 degrees Fahrenheit, and noted a less phenolic character and more fruity esters, allowing good control of this yeast depending on your intended outcome. Here are some key learnings for W68. You will note that this yeast thrives best in wots that are 13.5 degrees Plato, which is the equivalent of 1.055 Sg. Furthermore, this yeast is perfectly fine for reculturing, and the top crop method is advised by Fermentis in order to capture the best healthy cells. However, Fermentis do not recommend that this yeast is used for re-fermentation, be it in a bottle or a keg. Here is a look at this yeast baseline sensory analysis. You can see that it is quite close to WB06 but leans towards the fruity side much more. Naturally, we already know that if the temperature is pushed higher, then this fruity side can be enhanced further at the sacrifice of the phenolic character. Next up is the second of the new yeast, BW20. This is a Belgian yeast with a moderate flavour for when you really want other aspects of the beer to shine brighter than the yeast, which in this case could be orange peel, coriander or fruit, as just three common examples from Belgian beers. As you can also see, this yeast is suggested to be used at temperatures over 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's now look at some testing for this yeast. Here are the results of one experiment where 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit was used as the fermentation temperature. As you can see, this gave a medium fermentation speed, and the attenuation once again was close to 80%. Fermentis also conducted a test at 23 degrees Celsius or just over 73 degrees Fahrenheit with this yeast, and they found that BW20 also had less of a phenolic character at this temperature and also allowed other flavours to come through even further compared to lower temperatures. The key learnings for BW20 include that you can expect a fermentation time of around 10 days. This yeast ferments well at 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, even within high gravity wots. Like with the previous yeast, this yeast is perfectly fine for reculturing, and the top graph method is again advised by Fermentis in order to capture the best healthy cells. However, once again, Fermentis do not recommend that this yeast be used for re-fermentation, be it in a bottle or a keg. If we now look at the baseline sensory analysis, we can see that BW20 is not as strong with its fruit or spice aroma when compared to both BW06 and also W68, and like W68, leans more towards fruit than spice. Naturally, this is in keeping with the yeast profile being something ideal for styles where you want other flavours to come through more so than compared to the yeast itself. I do hope that this look at the range of Fermentis wheat yeast proved to be interesting and useful. Certainly I'm already testing the two new strains and already have one beer finalised that I'll be sharing with you all in the near future. It would be great to hear from you, the viewer, on your impressions of this new wheat yeast range from Fermentis. Also your thoughts of the new yeast once you have tried it. This is my second video so far this year already on new yeast releases from Fermentis, and look forward to seeing what the rest of the year has in store for us all too. I do hope that you found this video useful, informative and interesting. If so, why not consider liking and subscribing? For further support you can join the channel's Facebook group, and if you would like to support the channel then check out the channel's merchandise store, as all profits go back into the channel. Until next time, happy brewing!